Good evening, folks. Good evening, everyone. I believe that your day was beautiful. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, even it's for a brief moment. I am excited that we can have a conversation tonight on this very important subject of knowledge. And what I'm trying to share briefly this evening has to do with the fact that your growth is premised on how much you know, and every knowledge is perspective driven. You know, based on what you're looking for, you know, based on how you have been groomed, and the process of grooming can be consistently upward in nature. So it is a very wide subject that we're trying to look at starting this evening. What is the level of your hunger for knowledge? Hunger for knowledge is key, is one of the best platforms or foundation for knowledge acquisition. And we live in a knowledge driven generation, yet a vast majority of people do not want to have anything to do with knowledge. Okay. Um, and I'm not speaking about academic knowledge here. I am not speaking about the conventional certificated knowledge that you have from, the four walls of educational institutions. I am speaking about the knowledge with respect to your life, where you're headed, knowledge that is connected to your profession, knowledge about how things work within your sphere of profession, your career, and knowledge with respect to the business you're interested in and the market that you're playing in. Now, if you do not have a generic hunger for knowledge on, you know, a general note, it is difficult to delve into knowledge with respect to the area that you want to play in. And so I am a spiritual leader, therefore I desire to gather a body of knowledge, or have access to a body of knowledge that has to help me develop my spiritual capacity. Now, in that respect, prayer alone would not cut it, because prayer is my connection and communion with God. But knowledge is what gives me the capacity to operate in the office that I operate as a pastor. Knowledge is what gives me the enablement to be able to lead people spiritually. Prayer alone will not cut it, as important as prayer is. I'm just giving you an example of what knowledge can do for my profession as a spiritual leader. Okay, the more I know, the more I teach people to live right, to understand right, so that they will connect their life to you know the right source, so their life can be impacted by the spiritual, and then my job will be said to have started in the life of those that I oversee. Okay. And the end result, really, for a spiritual leader, what is profit for a spiritual leader, especially a Christian leader, is to bring the congregant, to bring the disciple to a point of maturity where the disciple can connect with Christ on his or her own. And the ultimate desire of God is that all of us, every person that I pastor, every person that is a Christian under my purview, should grow to the stature and measure of Christ. Once the person begins to live and act and follow after the way of Christ, my job is said to be done to some extent. All I need to do is to keep guiding that person so that the person can also begin to disciple other people. Okay? My job as a spiritual leader is not to be present in the life of the congregant or the disciple 247 all the days of their lives while they are under my purview. There is a time of learning, there is a time where I have to release them to the field, there is a time that they begin to lead others as well. The Apostle Paul said to the I think to those uh, Hebrew uh, folks he was writing to in Hebrews, that when some of you are supposed to be teachers in Hebrews chapter 5, towards the end of the chapter, you see, when some of you are supposed to be teachers, you still need to be taught. All right, you still need to be taught. The idea is for you to be mentored or to be groomed as a disciple under my purview. For instance, I just use that as an example, until you come to a point of maturity where you begin to mentor other people. Thank you so much, Benita Samuel, for joining us tonight. Good evening from here as well. So, in order for me to get that job done rightly, okay, I need to have a continuous inflow of a body of knowledge that develops my capacity to perform that job. And so the more I learn, the more I have a reservoir of information, the better I am as a spiritual leader. And so I must stay hungry. I must stay consistently desirous of taking in information. I'll give you an example of what I did during this weekend. I went to a Christian library. Okay, you're asking, is there a Christian library in Kano? Yes, it's on number 31A Gold Coast Road. The Gospel Proclaimers Mission is a Christian literature organization. I have been patronizing them for the past 25 years and on. Yes, in this city. And you can find books there that are no longer in circulation. You can find them anywhere. Now, I'm not just trying to advertise them, but I just want you to know what I did during the weekend. I don't know if I can find that book. Okay, I think I've got it here. As a matter of fact, I have two books that I got from them. This book is authored by the uh, person who operates that place. Can you see this? This is the new topical classical anthology by O.O. Caleb. O.O. Caleb is the one who operates the Salem Gospel books here in Kano. And I have had this book. As a matter of fact, I was one of those who participated in helping to ensure that this book is in circulation again. This was printed in Kano. Um, it's a collection of quotable quotes, wisdom, vivid verses, golden treasures or nuggets, food for thought, and ancient landmarks. There are quotes, quotes on virtually every spiritual matter. Okay, and this book it's about how many pages Let me see. We have um it's so big, it's 511 pages. I have this book. I confer and refer to it virtually every week. It helps my speaking, it helps my teaching as a pastor, it helps my teaching as one who teaches the word of God. And so on a constant basis, I am increasing my body of knowledge so that I am resourceful enough for my congregation and for those that count on me for spiritual guidance. Now, I have taken this route to explain to you why I hunger after knowledge on a consistent basis. Because I have just been talking about my position as a spiritual leader. Now, that's not the only thing I do, all right? But that's the primary thing that I do. I'm a spiritual leader, I'm a pastor, I'm a teacher of a word, okay? I lead a congregation by the name of Living Hope Christian Center right here in the city of Kano. So there are people who count on me that when I come to church and to speak to them and to teach them and to preach the word, I must come with solid information based on sound principles. I must not come to the pulpit blabbing. Why? Because there has to be, inside of me, a constant flow of information, right information, because information is power. All right. And so I have to constantly uh, be full. This weekend, the book I actually wanted to tell you I borrowed from the Gospels, Salem Gospel book is this. If you can see it closely, it is titled The Spiritual Man. All right. I have just started reading this book. The book is so voluminous. It is 231 pages, right? And I have just started reading it. It's titled The Spiritual Mind by Watchman Nee. Watchman Nee uh, was a spiritual leader of note who is of a Chinese ancestry. He is from China and he died many years ago, but he wrote most of his Christian classics from the prison. Okay, this guy spent most of his Christian life in prison, and so he wrote most of his books from prison. This is a complete volume of his series on the spiritual man. This book was actually written before he went to prison, but the book is a classic indeed. As a matter of fact, at some point he asked people to stop reprinting it because it was almost, in his own opinion, competing with the Bible, and he didn't want to have any of that. Okay, so these are the books. This particular one that I just showed you by Watchman Nee is a book I'm reading right now to develop my spiritual capacity so that I am well informed. I have a book in my library here. It's called uh I think it's here. Yeah, it's one of the books I'm also reading right now. Look at this: systematic theology. Systematic theology. Now, why do I have all of these books? What about the Bible? Let me say something to you. The Apostle Paul had this scripture, this scroll of the Old Testament, and was it not sufficient for him? But at some point, he was writing to Timothy when he was in prison. He said to Timothy, when you're coming to visit me, please come with the parchment. That means the notes and books that I left in your place. So, besides the Torah, the Old Testament, you know, he was still reading. Don't forget that the Apostle Paul wrote about 70% of the New Testament. All of those epistles, you know, the epistle of the Apostle Paul to the Romans, to the Corinthians 1 and 2. He wrote to the Galatian church. He wrote to the Ephesians church. And then he wrote to the Colossian church. He wrote two letters to Thessalonica, the church in the of the people of Thessalonians. He wrote to, arguably, a lot of theologians believe that he wrote the the letter to Hebrews, even though most times we refer to uh, Hebrew as, okay, uh, an unknown author. No, that's the Apostle Paul's writing as far as we're concerned. Okay, his salutations, his closing, the explanation. Only Apostle Paul could have written such massive theological masterpiece. Okay, so he wrote Hebrews. He literally wrote 70% of the New Testament. And why was he able to write more than the other apostles? Because he was one who had enough capacity to receive information based on his educational capacity, his learning. He was a lawyer. He was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. He had a body of knowledge that none of the apostles had. The apostle Peter at some point said of Paul, that our brother Paul, some of the things he wrote that are difficult to understand. So the Lord Jesus found it easier to pass certain spiritual information through the apostle Paul because he had enough vocabulary spiritually in terms of what he had studied. He was a doctor of the law. And so the way he wrote um, the book of Romans to the Roman church, and he then wrote Hebrew. If you go back to the Old Testament, Hebrew, the letter of Hebrew, you know, is almost an explanation of Leviticus. Romans talked so much about the faith of Abraham. And if you indeed want to settle once and for all the subject of tithes and offering, go read Hebrews chapter 7. Okay. So, what am I saying in essence? I've talked about how I read for this area of my spiritual leadership role. So, I am refreshing myself constantly. And so, I have something to say. And when God speaks to me about what He wants His people to hear, it is easier to assimilate what He's saying because I have expanded my vocabulary in my on my my uh, inner self, my mind, such that I can actually hear God clearly. I don't need to struggle to hear Him because I am constantly refreshed. And so He passes through that body of knowledge and speak through me to the people in a language that they understand. I don't have to struggle with downloading what God is saying either through the scriptures or directly to me that are principle centered, because God is not going to speak anything that is outside of the scriptures. Okay. So it is easier for me to minister to His people under my care and effectively too as I read and develop my capacity and grow thereby. All right. It's very profound, an understanding that you should have, that being hungry for knowledge makes you resourceful and a sought after person in your field. I have spoken about my field, which is spiritual leadership and guidance, spiritual uh, teaching and mentoring. And as a pastor of a church, it is important that I do what I do by constantly going after knowledge and, you know, constantly having that body of knowledge that I can lead and help people grow. Now, that is what growing, by reading and taking in information does for my area of spiritual leadership. Now, last week or 2 weeks ago, I think it's last week now. Yes, last week. I deliberately went out to buy two books from a shopping mall. One of them is not here, but I have one here. This is a book written by Lee Cray. Some of you may know him. He said at the back of a book, he said, if you live for people's acceptance, you will die from their rejection. And the title of the book is Unashamed. Unashamed. Now, why did I buy this book? Because I want to also increase my knowledge base so that I can, live as one who has to be effective in whatever I do. Now, I am one person that do not live on the validation of people. All right. I died to public opinion a long time ago. I don't care what anybody is saying. I just do what is right as far as my conscience is concerned. All right. Now, I am not arrogant. I am not one who keeps people at arm's length. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not blowing my trumpet up, but I am one of the most approachable persons you can ever, find. But again, I have. I walk by a principle of once I believe in something, I go and do it. And so, in order to arm myself and refresh my knowledge in the area of living by my convictions, I saw this book and it appealed to me. Okay, because besides being a spiritual leader, I am a media consultant. I am an author and a creative writer. I'm a radio and TV producer. I am also an enterprise coach, besides being a certified management consultant. As a matter of fact, I'm a fellow of the International Institute of Management Consultants. And so you can see that that's where I earn money from. And in order for me to be constantly in demand, I must know what I'm doing. All right. So if as a life coach, I must help people live by their convictions. I must help people find their purpose. I must help people ensure that they are living, on the basis of how they have been wired. And this type of books help me to build my level of knowledge. Now, everything that anybody does and is effective at it, he learned it. Trust me, nobody was born with a body of knowledge. We were all born empty. And so, for you to become something, you must pay the price of learning. And you cannot learn except you're hungry. Okay. So, all around me, I'm surrounded by knowledge and information materials. I invest deliberately on knowledge and information material. Why? Because I am an information merchant. Now, besides being a pastor, which is about, giving out information on the spiritual level, I am also an information merchant in the secular world, okay? Media consulting, creative writing, authoring books, public speaker, conference speaker, trainer, in leadership and management. These are all knowledge driven professional activities. And so if I am not up to date and I am not hungry, you called me for one conference and you have the same topic that I spoke about in another conference 2 weeks ago. I might end up using the notes of the last conference and speak in your conference. And so, if one of the persons who attended your conference was in the last conference, you may hear me repeating exactly what I said in the last conference. That is if I'm not improving myself and growing in knowledge in my field. So it can be the same topic, but I'm speaking at different times. I can assure you that there will be different, themes, different examples. You might, My wife heard me speak to a Bible school on a on a particular subject. So the Bible school had daytime Bible school, and then there is this weekend executive class. All right, I was running some classes for a particular Bible school in Kano, and so we had this daytime class, and I was taking that subject matter. I can't remember what subject matter it was, but I think it has to do with spiritual leadership and all of that. And so my wife was in both sessions. Okay, so the first session, I did justice to that as far as I'm concerned. All right, but the persons who were in that class obviously were people whose level of understanding was different from those who were attending the executive class. Now, those who, sorry, who attended the executive class were professionals, bankers, lawyers, top executives in different private and public sector corporations. And so, sorry about that. Those who attended the daytime class were what you would call regular folks, civil servants, those who have small businesses that they run, they are sole proprietors, and all of that. Okay. So it is not possible for me to present the same topic the same way to the to the two audiences. All right. So in the daytime class, I came down to the level of the people I was speaking with. In the executive class, I raised the notch higher, and my conversation with them, my teaching of the same subject was on a completely different level. Totally, completely different level. As a matter of fact, when we're done, my wife said, you didn't do justice to the daytime class. The profound things you shared with this class is completely different from what you shared in the other class. And I had to say this. There are two different audiences. And you need to have some level of competence, understanding of training or teaching with enough body of knowledge to be able to differentiate between the two different audiences and speak to them at their level such that the class in the daytime understood exactly what I was saying based on their level of understanding. Haven't understood that this is their level. I communicated at their level. And the executive class, knowing that there are people who can understand certain level of profound, statements, examples, I raised my game and they got it because I spoke their language. That is not possible if I had not worked on myself. And it came from the place of hunger. It came from the place of constant study. It came from the place of desiring to grow. And so, beyond the desire, I invested in knowledge. Beyond the desire, I surrounded myself with information. No matter which field you're operating in, are you a spiritual leader or you are a leader in the marketplace? I urge you, in today's competitive world, you can be overwhelmed and swallowed up if you're not on your toes. Because the world is looking for solution providers, the world is looking for those who can get the job done in that your field. So if you're not operating at a certain level, you will just share crumbs. And so in my broadcast on Wednesday, I'll be sharing with you how you may earn, you may be among the few who earn 80% of the resources that is available in your industry. You didn't get that. In every industry, about 20% of the persons or less than that earn 80% of all the money in circulation in that industry. So in the fashion industry, for instance, if $100 million is available, is what is referred to as the turnover for that industry in Nigeria within a particular period, only about 20% and less of fashion designers, those in the fashion industry, only about 20% or less, and 80% of that $100 million. So very few number of people say, let's be generous, 20% of people earn 80% of the $100 million. The remaining 80% of the people in that industry, fashion designing, for instance, in Nigeria, share 20%. So the top 10, the top 20, the top 5 earn a large chunk of the money available. Why? Because nobody wants average. Everybody wants a top fashion designer to do, you know, uh, the job for them. And it is applicable in every industry. People are looking for those at the top, especially those who have got the cash, those who have got the means, those who want the best. They have the cash. And so if you are that operating at that top level, you just need 2 jobs, 3 jobs in a year. You don't need 3 or 4 clients, and you're good to go because they have got the votes to fund their appetite or their need that you can provide. And people who have such funds are not looking down. They're looking at high quality. They're looking at those who are operating at the highest level. And what takes you to that highest level is hunger for knowledge, hunger for being the best and operating, your system and your structure and your, brand in a way that you are actually at the top of your game. And within that industry, you're operating among the top 10, among the top 20, depending on the size of the industry, because those who have got the cash and those who have need for that industry, for that solution, for that type of solution within that industry, they're looking for top players. And how do you get to the top? You have got to be hungry. I don't know what your hunger level is, but I'm a trainer. I'm a management coach. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a life coach. I help people. I train people on virtually, you know, every area that you can think about that will help peak performance take place in your life. And so let's have a conversation. I'll share my uh, phone number on the screen right now. It's a WhatsApp line. You can send me a WhatsApp message. Okay, send me a WhatsApp message and let's begin the conversation on how you can, you know, begin to live a growth oriented lifestyle. That's my WhatsApp number. Don't call. Okay, just send me a WhatsApp message and tell me, okay, you watch my broadcast and you're interested in engaging me as your trainer, your peak performance expert. We have various trainings that we run at Crest Lead Center. Okay, and so I'll be shutting down in a moment. Okay, if you're just joining us, please go back to play back this video. You have missed a lot, but you can play it back. And for those who have been watching, and you know some people who should be operating at the top, like you should be operating at the top, share the video. And let this be a blessing. Let this be a gift for your friends. Okay. Um, I've shared some of the books that I've been reading. I am an ardent listener. This book is powerful. Okay. Living, as salt and light. This is a spiritual book. It's a book that helps to build my spiritual capacity. And this is what I'm reading right now, The Spiritual Man. Now, depending on your field, you can pick books. There are a lot of people since the year started. This is October. They have not deliberately read any book. How do you want to operate at the top of your game if you're not reading? This is a non-Christian book that I'm reading right now that helps me to build capacity in my consulting in the various areas that I mentioned to you. Okay, so I'm a trainer and I have got what it takes to help put you on a pedestal such that you become a resourceful person that provides solution. Now it doesn't matter which field you're operating. What I have to offer can help you in every field. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a physician, for animals, a vet doctor, so to say. You're you're in the engineering field, you run an engineering company, or you work in the bank and you want to improve your performance so that your appraiser can look very good. I spent 8 years working in the bank. I spent another 7 years working in a manufacturing firm. I have worked 4 years in the insurance industry, and for the past 12 years on, I have been a consultant to different corporations and organizations across the country. And I have got what it takes to help you grow. And so, if you like, you need what I've got so you can grow. Easy is not an option. Is it simple? Yes. When you follow a structure. Success does not come by wishing them. Success comes when you pay the price. And the price you pay in this case is seeking knowledge. Have hunger for knowledge. All right. So some of the things I do now, I do with ease because I have developed capacity over almost 30 years. Yeah, started quite early, over 30 years. So some things come naturally because they're second nature to me now. All right. And so before we shut down, I like to play a song for you. A friend of mine who is good at his game. The guy is good. And he is consistent. He's been consistent for more than 25 years. He may not be popular in the sense of everybody knowing him, but he's a thoroughbred gospel reggae artist. His name is Favor Johnson. He's based in Abuja. He's an example of one person who has maintained consistency and built his craft over time. He is not just a performing artist, a gospel performing artist. He's a spiritual guide. He is a mentor to many. He is a film producer and a movie director. He is the anchor of One Voice Africa TV. And I like for you to, you know, join me in welcoming this evening the amazing and the quintessential Favor Johnson. And this video is titled Celebrate. You will enjoy this and you tell me.
It is daybreak. I am here again by your mercy. Lord of mercy. Yeah. All because we are alive. We celebrate, you know. I am grateful. You've been good. You have kept me. Now I walk among the big and the mighty. I have more reasons to celebrate. Celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate. Everybody come on, celebrate. I'm gonna can be more than this, that you gave your life for one like me. By the stripes you bear, now I am healed. I'm your temple, oh God, and I've got heavens in my heart. Celebrate, I'm gonna celebrate. Let the living join me celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate. Celebrate, everybody come and let us. If you're alive and well, if you can listen to this music, if you're not deaf and dumb, come along. By now you should be grateful. It is the living that can praise God for His goodness and mercy over your life. Oh, it's a privilege, not a right. Now that you're counted among the living, and if you can move, breathe, walk upon the earth, make a say. If you can move, if you can eat, if you can go to the loo, celebrate me, say. Jesus, I celebrate you. Thank you for counting me among the living. It is a privilege, not a right, Master. Let the living praise God.
All right, Celebrate there by Favor Johnson. I apologize for the video quality right there on the movie, but he is one artist that I respect, I have followed, and he's been very consistent over the years. And so he's an example of one who, you know, has paid his price. And when he starts enjoying the fruit of his labor, you cannot deny him that position. So, once again, what's your hunger level? Give me a shout. Let's have a discussion. Send me a message and let's start the process. But on Wednesday, we're going to have a conversation on how you can begin to lay the right foundation, how you can indeed begin to get the right knowledge in play. And like I mentioned, we can get you started. I run a consulting firm by the name of Crest Lead Center, and we help build institutions, individuals, and society. It will be a pleasure to work with you and ensure that you become the best version of yourself. This is my offering tonight on Gomnet TV, and I have been speaking on the subject hunger for knowledge so that you can be an impactful human being. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow by 9:30. We'll be having a conversation on how you have a choice between cash and access. What would you take? Cash and information. What would you take? Join me 9:30 p.m. tomorrow. But our conversation, which is a follow-up to this conversation that we're having today, will come up on Wednesday, the same time. God bless you. Have a lovely night and stay out of trouble.